Elvis Presley was more than just the king of rock and roll. Beneath the fame, flashing lights, and iconic moves was a deeply emotional soul who felt every note he sang. While millions wept for his voice, few know the songs that brought tears to his eyes. Whether it reminded him of lost love, his late mother, or the pressures of fame, some melodies struck a personal chord too deep to ignore. Today, we reveal 5 songs that touched Elvis so deeply, they brought the king to tears. Get ready for an emotional journey into his most vulnerable moments. Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. Behind the velvet suits and Vegas stages, Elvis Presley carried a world of emotion in his heart. From the early death of his beloved mother Gladys to the pressure of international fame, Elvis bore wounds that never fully healed. His music was not just a performance, it was an outlet. In private studio sessions, backstage before concerts, and even during casual jam sessions with friends, there were rare moments when a song would bring him to the brink of tears, or past it. Some were songs he performed himself. Others were tracks by other artists that reminded him of painful memories or spiritual truths he could not ignore. These were not the usual heartbreak songs everyone expected from pop stars. These songs cracked open Elvis's soul. Some reminded him of his roots in gospel and the deep spirituality he carried with him all his life. Others were tied to his mother's memory, especially after her passing in 1958, an event that emotionally broke Elvis more than anything else. Then there were songs that symbolized isolation, loss, or the burden of being a man idolized by millions but understood by few. As Priscilla Presley and close confidants have often shared in interviews, Elvis was never afraid to cry when music truly moved him. And though fans adored the confident, ready performer, those closest to him witnessed a sensitive man for whom music was a sacred experience. Let's now walk through 5 unforgettable songs that made even the king of rock and roll cry. Number 1. Old Shep. Old Shep was not just a song to Elvis Presley, it was the beginning of everything. It was the first song he ever performed publicly, and it carried an emotional weight that never left him. Originally written by Red Foley in 1935, Old Shep tells the heartbreaking story of a boy and his loyal dog who must be put down after falling ill. It's a simple tale of love and loss, but for Elvis, it touched something far deeper. Elvis first sang Old Shep at a talent show at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show when he was just 10 years old. He wore glasses, held his guitar nervously, and sang from the heart. He did not win first prize, but he won applause and encouragement, and more importantly, he discovered the power of music to move people. That performance planted the seed of a dream that would later grow into a legacy. But when Elvis recorded Old Shep professionally in 1956, the emotions from his childhood flooded back. As the lyrics unfolded, "I had to shoot Old Shep today," Elvis reportedly choked up. The image of losing something you love and cannot save resonated deeply with him. It was not just about a dog. For Elvis, the song mirrored the fragility of life, the inevitability of loss, and the aching loneliness that fame would only magnify. Later in life, during rehearsals and quiet moments, Elvis would sometimes return to Old Shep. It reminded him of a simpler time, before the limousines and the cameras, when life was about a boy, his guitar, and a broken heart. Some of his close friends recalled that every time he sang it, there was a pause afterward, a heavy silence, like he was lost in thought. Perhaps he was thinking of his childhood, or of his mother, or of the innocence that slipped through his fingers as the years passed. Old Shep was more than a sad song. It was Elvis' emotional doorway, the first song that let him feel vulnerable on stage, and the first song that ever made the king of rock and roll cry, and that tear never fully dried. Number 2. Mama Liked the Roses. Few songs in Elvis Presley discography are as intimate and emotionally raw as Mama Liked the Roses. Recorded in 1969 and released posthumously on a special Mother Day single in 1970, this track was not just another sentimental ballad. It was a deeply personal love letter to the woman Elvis loved more than anyone in the world, his mother, Gladys Presley. Elvis and his mother shared an unusually close bond. She was his rock, his safe haven in a world that would later grow loud and unforgiving. When Gladys died in 1958, Elvis was just 23 years old and already a rising star. But her death shattered him. Friends said he collapsed in grief, unable to cope. Some believe he never fully recovered from the loss. The pain remained buried beneath his fame, only to surface in quiet moments, or in songs like this. Mama Liked the Roses tells the story of a mother remembered through the flowers she cherished. The lyrics are simple, but heartbreaking. Mama liked the roses. She grew them in the yard. And every time I hear the song, it brings back memories of her. When Elvis sang it, his voice was not polished or flashy. It trembled with sorrow and nostalgia. You can hear the ache in every word, as if he was speaking directly to her from a place of aching regret. Studio musicians and engineers who were there during the recording recall that Elvis was emotional throughout the session. He did not talk much. He did not joke around like usual. When the take was done, he reportedly sat in silence for a long moment, eyes fixed on the floor. No one dared break the moment. It was clear the song had brought him back to 1958, to that hospital room, to that funeral, to the memory of his mother's soft hands and her unconditional love. This song was not about selling records or topping charts. It was about remembering the woman who made Elvis Presley who he was. Mama Liked the Roses is not just a tribute. It's a son's whispered apology, a longing cry, and a musical bouquet laid gently at his mother's grave. Number 3. Unchained Melody. Unchained Melody was one of the last songs Elvis Presley ever performed, and it remains one of the most haunting moments in his entire career. The timeless ballad, originally made famous by the Righteous Brothers, became a vessel through which Elvis poured out his final emotion. But this wasn't just a cover. This was a cry from a man nearing the end of a long, lonely road. The date was June 21st, 1977, just weeks before Elvis' death. At the Rapid City concert, something unusual happened. Elvis, exhausted, bloated, and visibly unwell, suddenly pushed himself toward the piano. He didn't plan to play, and there was no rehearsal. The crowd went silent as he sat down. Then, with trembling fingers and a fragile voice, he began to play Unchained Melody. It was raw. It was unrehearsed. It was heartbreaking. The lyrics, "Oh my love, my darling, I have hungered for your touch," took on new meaning when sung by a man clearly haunted by loss, isolation, and perhaps a quiet awareness of his own mortality. His voice cracked under the weight of the words, but it never broke entirely. He pushed through every note, despite the physical toll. His longtime bodyguard and close friend, Joe Esposito, later said Elvis was pouring his soul out in front of thousands, and we all felt it. That moment was not just about the music. It was about everything Elvis could not say aloud. It was about lost love, lost time, and the heavy silence that fame never filled. There were no jokes, no flashy moves, just a man and a piano, laying bare a lifetime of pain in 4 minutes. Many fans who watched that performance described it as chilling and unforgettable. Some say he looked like a ghost of himself, clinging to the last piece of who he once was. But even in that weakened state, the power of his emotion struck everyone in the room. When the song ended, Elvis stood up slowly, looking drained but satisfied. That would be one of his final performances. He passed away less than 2 months later, and Unchained Melody became, for many, the King final message, his unspoken goodbye, sung through tears and truth. Number 4, You Will Never Walk Alone. You Will Never Walk Alone was more than just a gospel classic to Elvis Presley. It was a spiritual anchor, a reminder of faith during times when everything else felt like it was slipping away. Originally written for the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical Carousel, the song became a staple in churches, funerals, and inspirational events. But when Elvis sang it, the words felt personal, painfully personal. He recorded the song in 1967 during a period marked by inner turmoil. His marriage to Priscilla had just begun, but fame was beginning to show its cracks. His films were underwhelming, his artistic freedom was stifled, and he longed to return to the deep gospel roots that grounded him as a boy in Tupelo. You Will Never Walk Alone was his way of reaching for something pure, something untouched by fame, money, or heartbreak. In the studio, Elvis did not just sing the lyrics, he prayed them. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and do not be afraid of the dark. These were words Elvis often needed to hear himself. Insiders say that while recording this track, Elvis became deeply emotional. His voice shook with conviction, not because he was acting, but because he was holding on to his faith, to his past, to the hope that maybe, just maybe, he was not as alone as he sometimes felt. Elvis' close friends have shared that he would return to this song privately during low points in his life. Sometimes at Graceland, in the early morning hours, he'd sit at the piano, low, knee in the dark, and softly play it to himself. No cameras, no crowd, just Elvis and this sacred melody. It was his way of coping, of praying, of pleading for light in the darkness that so often surrounded him. When performed live, Elvis rarely spoke before or after this song. It was as if it was too sacred to be introduced. The silence that followed said everything. Those who were there say you could feel something in the room shift, a collective moment of reflection, guided by a man singing not from the stage, but from his soul. "You will never walk alone" was not just a promise to the audience. It was Elvis trying to believe it for himself. Number 5. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Are You Lonesome Tonight is one of Elvis Presley's most iconic ballads, and also one of the most emotionally revealing. Released in 1960 after his return from military service, it quickly became a massive hit, but beneath its romantic surface, this song carried a haunting loneliness that deeply mirrored Elvis' personal struggles. And as the years went by, the song took on a whole new weight, becoming one of the few numbers that could bring him to tears during live performances. The song's melancholy theme, lost love, regret, and longing, seemed to echo parts of Elvis's own life that he rarely spoke about. After his marriage to Priscilla Presley ended in 1973, Are You Lonesome Tonight became a mirror to the heartbreak he never quite healed from. Friends and bandmates reported that some nights when Elvis sang this song, his voice would tremble and his eyes would well up. He was not performing. He was remembering. One particular performance stands out. During a Las Vegas concert in the mid-1970s, Elvis began singing the song with his usual grace. But when he reached the spoken word section, "You know someone said the world's a stage," his voice cracked. He paused. For a moment it seemed like he might stop altogether. He looked down, visibly shaken, and when he resumed, his voice carried a weight of sorrow that electrified the room. It was clear. This was not just a performance. It was a confession. The spoken interlude of the song always hit Elvis the hardest. The line, "Was your heart filled with pain? Shall I come back again?" was not just lyrics. It was a question he never stopped asking himself. About Priscilla, about the life he used to have, about the fans, the fame, and what it all meant. There were nights he sang it flawlessly, but others where the emotion overwhelmed him. One night, after walking off stage, he reportedly broke down backstage. A close friend asked if he was okay, and Elvis simply said, "That one still hurts." Are You Lonesome Tonight was more than a hit song. It was Elvis' own silent cry into the void, a question he asked the world, and perhaps himself. Behind the spotlight, rhinestones and roaring crowds stood a man who felt deeply, sometimes too deeply. These 5 songs were not just performances. They were windows into Elvis Presley's soul. Through them, we witnessed his grief, his love, his faith, and his loneliness. They reminded us that even legends cry, and even kings fall silent when the music touches their heart. Elvis sang not just to entertain, but to express the emotions he could never put into words. And maybe that's why his voice still echoes today, because in every tear he shed, he left behind a piece of himself forever.